Hi, this is another Sea Spring podcast, and today we're going to be discussing unhoused pets and their humans. So take it away, Jesse.
I'm Jesse, and I live in Victoria, BC, and we have a large population of homeless people, and a lot of them have animals. And what I've been noticing lately is the lack of resources that's provided to them, and a lot of the resources that we have to help the homeless, like the shelters, food banks, and so on and so forth, don't allow pets into these facilities. And that's a problem because these pets are usually like the last thing a lot of these people have. Speaking from personal experience, a lot of these people aren't going to go in for something as basic as a haircut, a job interview, or even go to get like their documentation, their ID, or any of that stuff. If they have to leave their pet behind.
So let's slow down a bit. So what you're saying is a homeless person who has a pet with them. How does that happen in the first place? How do you think that situation arises?
Well, there's a few things that the pet could have been with them before they were homeless, or they a lot of times they end up adopting animals when they end up on the street, and a lot of it is just the loneliness and the isolation, and then also a lot of animals are just thrown out on the street. So when one vulnerable being sees another vulnerable being, they kind of link up and they bond, and it's normally a good thing. It actually has been proven that a lot of people on the street who end up with a dog or a cat or some sort of animal have a lower use of substances, lower crime. They're just all around a little more mentally healthy, a little bit, but not all the time. But they do help.
A little bit of sarcasm. Who would have
And
thought?
who would have thought a little love and compassion?
Right? A little fur baby.
I know. It's
Yeah.
like so like that's just an issue. So I think we have a big resource in animals, and and how they help the mental health crisis, and we're not tapping into it. And I've seen people just in this city alone get themselves off the street for the sake of their pet. And a lot of people who don't understand this, who have kids, should understand this. Is that when you got something to get up in the morning for, and to fight for, you're going to do it. But a lot of these people have been treated real badly, and they don't want to do it for themselves. So when you see them with an animal,
So what you're saying is that like the unhoused people with pets, there's such a low self-esteem at that point,
yeah,
that their motivation is solely to make sure their pet is okay.
yes.
Yes.
And I can't speak on it as an adult level, but as a teenager, I was homeless briefly, and I had a pet. And
Oh, was it a cat or a dog?
it was a cat.
Not just cat or dogs exist, but the dichotomy of pets.
Oh, it was a cat, but
It's a
she kind of had the
spectrum.
mentality of a dog, walked on a harness, good girl.
Oh, what was your cat's name?
Her name was Tiffy.
Tippy.
Yeah, she was a good girl.
Aw.
But yeah, she was important because when you think about it, being a teenager, when you're that down in life, well, the fact is that that little creature got me to get up every morning. So it got you to go back to school, got you on track.
Can you just briefly explain a little bit? Don't go into whatever detail, but just briefly explain why you were in the situation that you required a pet to motivate you when you were a
So
teenager.
my situation, a little just briefly, is actually my pet was born when I was 10, actually from a rescue. So I
Okay.
had her off the bat, but she was like, she was important because I was allowed to keep her in foster care in some pretty bad living situations. So she was just kind of like there. Like I didn't acquire her on the street. I acquired her in a very bad living situation, but I had her from the age of 10 up until this year, the age of 27.
Oh wow! So she lived quite a long time.
She lived almost 19 years.
Oh, must have been very well cared for.
She was
Oh,
spoiled. Yeah.
cool. That's awesome. And so, how many people in the foster system do you think have pets?
Actually, I would say I saw none. This is the thing: is what happened with me was very rare, and I believe it's a small town mentality of why this happened. But the worker I had imagined it would be a lot less work for her if she were to just somehow let me have the cat. It actually wasn't allowed. We weren't allowed to talk about it. The cat was just kind of there, and as long as I didn't do anything or act out, I could keep her. But actually, one of the main reasons I was permitted to keep her when I you know was when you're a kid and you got something you care about, that makes you compliant.
Yeah.
So but no, I came across a lot of kids who had their pets ripped away from them.
Mm,
And a lot of those kids were pretty mad that I got to keep mine, and I
yeah.
felt pretty guilty about it. But I also had like a sort of a birth mother on the side who could take her now and again.
Cool.
So it was like a one time deal thing.
And with the foster system, do you think there's a lot of overlap between unhoused youth and the foster system?
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed, especially with more of the artistic youth, is that a lot of them don't stay
Is it
in.
artistic or autistic?
No, artistic.
Or art, yeah. Artsy.
Yeah,
Okay,
artsy.
yeah,
The
just
artsy types.
yeah,
Ones we love.
yeah.
And yeah, so I noticed a lot of them end up on the street, and a lot of them will have a cat. There's actually a lot of cats,
Yeah.
and dogs and stuff. And a lot of the time, these kids are coming with the pets from their abusive homes,
Yeah.
and they leave and they run away, but they take their pet with them. So they don't even, they're off the radar of social services. They're off the radar of everybody. There's a lot of like underage kids living on the streets of Victoria, and no one knows about it.
Yeah.
But just because they're good at hiding, they're good at doing what they do.
What do you think the general opinion is from the general public about home unhoused people having pets?
Actually, I was upset because I didn't realize there was actually a stigma. Because when I was experiencing this, I was a little too in my own head, just trying to survive the day to day and
Yeah.
experiencing it for the first time. But I realized, and I myself, and I feel bad for this, is when my life was finally a bit together as an adult, I'd walk down, Pandora, and I'd see someone with a dog, and my brain automatically goes, "Oh, that poor dog," and I'm like, you know what? That's wrong. That is wrong. You got to undo that thinking because that dog is and then that person. That's a good thing you're seeing because that means that person is still present enough to have
Still,
that connection and care enough,
still
right?
caring for
Yeah.
another being.
When you
Yeah.
see them out there with pets,
Yeah.
they care.
Yeah.
And because they're wrapped, the nice blankets are wrapped around their pets.
And this kills me because when I was unhoused and I got into went to the shelter at Rock Bay, one of my roommates specifically, I won't mention names, of course, but she had a dog, and she was so far gone into drugs that her dog got so neglected. This poor animal had fleas, and it was in winter, so she had one of those coats on the dog because she was outside a lot to do drugs, and so there was rashes all over the dog's skin from not removing the
Oh yeah, people
and
don't realize the danger
yeah,
of the jackets.
and then the staff insisted on putting a diaper on the dog because she wasn't cleaning up after the dog like within the courtyard. And oh, I mean, and so actually I called the SPCA. I put my foot down. I was like, this poor animal. um
Where
and
do you draw the line?
well, I drew the line at the diaper. I was like, okay, it's gone too far. The diaper on the dog, no, that's not happening, not on my watch. And I called the SPCA, and they said they would bring someone over to investigate. And I don't think much was done about it, honestly. So I tried.
Well, that's just the thing. We don't have like when we look at these situations
But
happening, we don't have those resources.
yeah.
Um,
But what I'm also want to stress is that situation is probably not the average situation. Probably the average situation is the animal is, loved and cared for.
well, yeah, it's actually like I've been to people's homes who I called friends and seen how they take care of their situation and their animals, and it is kind of appalling. Actually, I've lost quite a few friends recently just over the fact that I couldn't stand to see that level of neglect. And then you'll have me walk down what a lot of people
And were these friends housed or unhoused?
housed. They were
Okay.
housed, and they had more than enough resources to take care of their animals. And
Oh.
the neglect was insane. And then you go and they had all this stuff, gaming, laptop, all this stuff, and the pets at the bare minimum or below that. And then
Yeah.
you go down to Pandora, cook anywhere down in downtown Victoria, and you see a man in ripped up shoes, jeans. He looks like he hasn't had a meal, and you can tell he's just neglected himself to the absolute
Yeah.
bare minimum.
Yeah.
And then his dog is shiny coat, looking a little plump, got some
Yeah.
boots on,
Yeah.
jacket, even a shiny collar. They
Yeah.
got the food, the water, and the dog is laying on a blanket and he's sitting on the damp ground.
I see a lot of bandanas around pets. That was downtown. That was kind of cute. I
Yeah,
thought.
there's some little bandanas, and then, it's just like it's amazing to see that, and it's like people should realize what they're looking at. They're looking at something as someone who has nothing has just given this creature everything.
That's so interesting. It's so what you're describing is so fascinating. So someone who is desperate is being a better care person for the animal, than someone who is comfortable and housed and has all of their comfort and
Yeah.
surroundings.
And I think the reason that people
That's probably not what people imagine or think when they think about the
no,
situation.
and I think people don't there's a connection, I think empathy. So I think when you are treated so badly by society and humans and you end up on the street, you get better towards people and you can kind of in a way, and for me, I felt my empathy going away. And
Yeah.
so whenever I felt like I was getting a little too cold or a little, too not human, that's where the cat came in. That's where Tiffy came in. That's where a lot of their pets come in. Is that it brings your empathy back, and you start being the caregiver for that creature, and it brings you back into being human.
Yeah.
And I just notice if you just all you have to do is look at one unhoused person who has no pet and one with a pet, and you can see the difference just in their eyes. It's kind of freaky, and no one pays attention to it. And I'm just like, it's right there.
And Rock Bay was the one, I think, the only shelter in town that accepts animals. Is that true?
Yeah. So the thing is Rock Bay does accept animals. And then but
And there are
there's
a ton there because when I was there was tons of cats and dogs, and it was great. Like actually,
yeah,
it was good to see.
it's great. And the thing is, if it's done properly, the thing
Yeah.
is they have such a resource in animal therapy with just the right.
Oh, right.
I was always saying all these places. It's not going to cure, it's not going to solve anything, but it's going to help so much. There's been studies.
It'll help calm all the fights that break out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Like if they had service dogs working on Pandora, my God, it's like we have a resource here and we're not using it. Instead, we are literally allowing the city is one of the worst for allowing pets into rentals. We wonder why we have so many
that's a
homeless
whole
with pets.
other podcast about rentals and
Yeah,
pets.
we could yell for hours about it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is, and people don't realize that because they say, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have a pet if you want to rent and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's funny is I work a lot of hours and I work hard and I play by most of the rules. And, and the fact is if you work that hard and then you're told you can't have a pet in a place you're paying, close to $2,000 for, well, I'm paying $2,000 a month for a shoebox and they're told they can't even have a pet in a home.
Yeah.
They pay. So this city is like, it's like we're attuned to doing the opposite of what would be better, And
it's almost like we've become complacent in how bad it is.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like we used to be this vibrant. I'm not sure if we used to be, but it feels like we used to be a little more like we were heading in a more progressive way. And now it's just shoeboxes stuffed with 5 roommates, and then you're told you're not allowed to have pets or a life, but you must give all your money to the landlord. It's like.
Yeah.
And you're not even allowed a creature comfort. So then people are going on the street with their pets. And, it doesn't matter how nice of a rental I would be offered.
Yeah.
You tell me I can't bring my cat or my pet with me, my family.
Yeah. I'm
going to go on the street with them or I'm going to leave the city. And then look, you've lost another worker. So,
we need to stress also that sometimes people choose homelessness in order to keep their pets.
Yes.
When they're being rent evicted or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is such a terrible, terrible choice to have to make. Heart-wrenching.
It's absolutely terrible. My father was homeless from the age of 15 straight through his 20s, based solely off of him having a dog that he was so connected to. And even back then it was like the rentals were ridiculous. And the thing was the dog was half German Shepherd, half Husky, so getting her into a rental, especially in the cities, where he could actually do his work,
it's a big dog,
was a problem. And then he's like, what, I'm not gonna leave her. So and those are the types of people that we're creating this stigma towards, the ones where, so I think that needs to change.
Sorry, who do you think the group is that's producing the stigma?
Just like, well, I don't want to label or attack anybody.
I mean, we're not pointing fingers.
We're not going to point any fingers.
We're just
there's certain kind of people who walk around who don't have quite enough education yet, and they don't stop to think long enough. And so when they see, people out there with their animals on the street, the first thing they think a lot of the time, and I know this because I've asked them because I got curious, and I say, what do you think when you see that man in that door with that dog? And it's never anything to do with that man. It's, well, we should take that dog away from him. And I'm like, wow.
That dog's probably keeping him alive.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow. And the thing is, years ago, I had that thought, only briefly, but I love animals to an extent that's a little insane. And I had that thought. So people who don't even have an interest in them, imagine how disconnected they are. I'm like, how could you be so disconnected from the other, like, half of your life form on this planet? Like,
yeah. So just quickly, could you mention some of the things you're hoping to see changed in Victoria?
Yeah. So again, Rock Bay does allow pets, and that is great.
We're gonna have to do another second part of the podcast because we're about to run out of time. 15 minutes is up. See spring out.